Today's moment in Black history is all about Charlotte Ray. Charlotte Ray was the very first African American woman to become a lawyer in the United States. Charlotte was born in New York City in 1850. Her dad was a really important figure in the abolitionist movement and worked very hard to help free enslaved Africans in the southern United States. Both he and her mother were very invested in their children having every opportunity that they could have, and they understood that the key to opportunity was a good education. So they made sure that all 6 of their children, daughters included, because at that time racism and sexism were both very rampant, got a good quality education. In that time period, women traditionally did not go to college, or not very often, but they made sure that all 3 of their daughters did. They went to Washington, D.C. so that they could go to college. At the time, it was called the Institution for the Education of Colored Youth, but now it is the University of the District of Columbia. Charlotte used that education to become a teacher at Howard University, working with their prep school. While teaching, she decided that she also wanted to further her own education and decided to enroll in the law school department. It was a little bit of a controversy because no woman had ever enrolled into the program. She used the name C.E. Ray. Many people think it's because she was a little bit worried that she might not be able to be accepted as a woman, but she went, and there did not seem to be much of a problem because academically she was very gifted and she held her own through the entirety of the program. She graduated on February 27th, 1872, becoming the very first woman to graduate from the Howard University School of Law. She was most interested in commercial law and wanted to be a real estate attorney, mostly so she wouldn't have to do a ton of time in court, because she understood that as a Black woman she would face struggles that her counterparts would not. Later that year, she was admitted to the District of Columbia Bar and became the very first woman in Washington, D.C. history to be able to practice law. This was celebrated within the community, and she was featured in several different magazines trying to kind of bolster up her business. Even though she wanted to specialize in real estate law to avoid time in court, she was not afraid to back down when things needed to be done. Back in that time, women did not have many rights, and so when Charlotte heard of a woman who was trying to get a divorce from her husband, which at the time was incredibly difficult, she took up the case, making her the very first woman to practice in front of the District of Columbia Supreme Court. Despite the odds of the case, Charlotte's case was beautiful, flawless. She was said to be eloquent, authoritative, and one of the best lawyers in the country, and she won that case. Despite her outstanding ability, people didn't necessarily trust that a female lawyer would be as good as a male lawyer. And so unfortunately, she really struggled to get steady business, even though she was as good or better than many of the other lawyers of the day. She did eventually decide to close her legal practice, but she continued to be an advocate, particularly for the rights of women. She fought hard for the rights of women's suffrage and continued to work in the public school system until retirement.